Sorry. How's it going, everybody? Okay. So, I have this video. Not this video again. Is about sort of about R. Kelly. Now, I just got done watching half of the, I think episode one of Surviving R. Kelly, and a little bit of half of the second episode. And so, there's a lot you could really say about this, but for the most part, I say sort of because this kind of isn't really it is about him. The main premise is about him, but it's not really like it's not fully about him. Uh, so let's get into it. Now we have. I'm going to refer to The Shack. There's a movie called The Shack. Great movie, especially if you're Christian. You're like, if you don't think too hard doctrinally about it, it's like it's amazing movie. Now in the movie, it states that like it states, I believe, the idea is that like the guy, they have a field trip. The father, he has family, kids and stuff, and the youngest, the heavy believer in God, as much as the little child can be. And so, the little child is taken by a predator, abuser, one of them, and then he has later on he's bitter, and then he gets his letter, and he think it's not really a sender. I guess it's from God. There's no footprints and stuff to indicate where it came from. So goes on this journey. He drives to the shack where the killer, abuser, predator, last had his daughter, and his daughter, excuse me, I guess that was where the remains were at. And later, he meets the persons of God personified in these three persons. Which is the strangest thing is people didn't like Octavia Spencer, specifically her. It's like, why has God a big black woman? I'm like, if you read it, if you watch the film, it thoroughly explains why the personification of God in this personified story speaks about who God is, because if you trip about that, you just accept the fact that, like, which is weird because you accept the fact that this is mankind's thought process for God, not everything. And while I get it, doctrinally it has to be correct, I'm pretty, of course she's taking the person who made it, or the person who made the film is taking creative license to display them in these persons. And which is always kind of ironic because whenever they debate like the Trinity, they always explain it, and then they say at the same time, well, God can't be explained, because if man can't explain the Trinity fully, then it wouldn't be God. It'd be a man's imagination because he thought it up. And I just think that's paradoxical to these complaints, because it's like if the persons of God is unexplainable, but at best explainable in these fashions, in these forms, then why complain about them at all? Especially when we can't fully grasp what the Trinity is. Except that is the distinguishable relationship between the three persons of God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So, but all that stuff aside, he talks to each one of them, and they give their portion, their aspects, perceptions, perspective of the story, and perspectives of the human problems of like the problems of evil, God's thoughts, God's feelings toward mankind, sin, and it's all probably the perceptions of this person, of the author. And again, I'm not thinking too doctrinally heavy about it, because I'm like, okay, what am I going to expect? It's not the Bible, so I'm not going to expect it to be theologically literate. The Bible is very condensed. Anybody who's tried to read that Bible fully cannot comprehend all the details and the doctrines thereof inside of it. Even contextually speaking, it's just very theologically rich book. So going back to this, there's a point where the persons of God introduce the main character later to the I want to say the abuser's father, and says the abuser's father abused him, and that led him to abuse the main character's youngest daughter. And just says you have to forgive him. You have to keep forgiving him until you are able to get past this yourself. And so it's like these are very real issues. It's very tough. With R. Kelly is similar. These things are very close. It's kind of like we're not at the stage of forgiveness, let alone even like addressing the bigger problem, which is the black community itself. The community that perpetuated this victim, perpetuated this man to freely go about doing what he wanted because his music was good. They let his music be a pass. The Boondocks was very quick to tell them, sorry, very quick to say, okay, yeah, his music is good, but it doesn't matter. He did this, you know, and the young kid, Riley, his perception was that if she really wanted it, if she didn't want it, then she would have went out the way. You know, it was hers. I mean, it was her perception. And even at the time, I was younger, so I was like, hey, that makes sense. She should just get out the way. But now I'm thinking to myself, from an older standpoint, the responsibility and the wisdom that and the expectation of that wisdom that comes with being an older gentleman, older person, older male, female, you hold, and that's just part of this irresponsible, morally relativistic worldview that says do whatever you want, but it's quick to bash people because they don't understand the concept of responsibility. Because if morality is just everywhere, it doesn't really matter. Then why complain? Why complain now? So that's my issue. Why are we complaining now if we wanted our cake and ate it too? If we wanted a person who was just hypersexual and he sung about hypersexual things, of course you could say all the other stuff like the legalities. Oh, the parents said it was okay, and it's okay to actually marry someone at the age of 16, and all the other stuff, and oh yeah, don't forget in the olden days they married in different age ranges, and it's just a new concept to marry an 18 years old and child, Romeo and Juliet. You can say a lot of this stuff, but the idea behind all of this, and I guess it should be expressed a little more, is that and to me it wasn't, because there was this anime that I had read. I can't remember it now. I remember the name more so, but it was about this guy. He was a coach. He was very good at his job, and there was a female, she was like the main character. She wanted to be great, and so when she heard a lot of things about this coach, and he was very good, but one thing she noticed is that he was handling and it was like a tennis match, and he was kind of touching them inappropriately, but it made them uncomfortable to the point that in order for them to, it was almost like they disregarded it, and it pushed them to work better. And at the same time, she was like, "That's not right," And then she talks amongst her peers, and she's like, "Okay, we get that that's wrong, but so what? I mean, we're doing well. We're succeeding in this." And so she says, "No, that's not right. We have to target this person. We have to like what he's doing is wrong. Like regardless of the results, he's exploiting you guys." And he was just like, and then it goes between her, the principal, and the trainer himself, and he's kind of appalled because he's like, I'm not sexually exploiting these females. I'm actually just trying to help them explore their potential and stuff like that. And like, it's weird because the main character sees that it's inappropriate. The other girls are disregarding it, and they're just kind of casting the problem aside. the principal doesn't care as much, and she's the only one that has a problem with it. So we had this dynamic that regardless of the people who don't mind because it's helping them in their performance versus one person who says no, it's inappropriate and you should find a better way, or not even a better way, but you should just stop being inappropriate. So which one, regardless of the performance that the majority claims that is given them, should that one person just deny the claims that, hey, it's inappropriate just because it's making them perform? So basically, long story short, she goes to great lengths, and there's even a time where the guy, he's so adamant about him not being a predator that he I want to say he takes her to a room and he has her stripped naked, and he says, I'm not sexually aroused, and he's like, strip naked and get near me, and then he just basically like humiliates her, but he, in his perception of like, I don't feel aroused, so you do something completely degrading and then essentially try to arouse me. And it's like she especially in his humiliation, she continues to go through. She continues to fight to the point that I want to say she wins the she kind of wins the sympathy of her peers. I forget how it works out, but everybody finally sees that like this guy what he's doing is inappropriate, and it just needs to stop. So going back to this idea that R. Kelly, like, people are looking at his craft versus his actions, and we've done that with other people, especially celebrities, especially other celebrities. But that's it's always been this battle of, do we accept their art versus accept the people behind that art. Another one, person who made Rurouni Kenshin, not the film itself, but the anime. He was found with child pornography, and that's shocking. To me, that's extremely shocking because I love Rurouni Kenshin. I love the anime when I was growing up. And I remember this guy named the Anime Man. He was saying like, no, no, whatever. Like, I mean, not whatever, but like, no, we can't sit here and say because he makes good anime, we should just throw him out. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting his opinion wrong. His opinion was that like, no, we should target him, not target him, but just kind of like not support him because he has this stuff, and the Japanese government just gave him a fine. They didn't really do too much with him, from what I can understand at the time. And so again, we still play this idea of, do we accept their art versus their actions? Is a person accountable just because they make good art? And so I'm kind of glad in this idea that this more relativism isn't standing, because it can't stand. You can't just say a person who makes you feel good is tied to somebody who is potentially morally okay, morally upright. I believe the church, and I want to say particularly the stiflers of the church, who are like very hard nosed about morality. Not to say they don't have their sins too, but it's like sin. The things of sin has a slippery slope. It's just like R. Kelly with all this hypersexual content, and they say he was molested like as a youth, about one of his members of his family. So it's like, it's similar to the shack, the cycle perpetuates itself. Someone gets molested, and someone molests someone else, or someone does something just to sexually perverse. It just kind of pushes. It's kind of like a trail. So, but just because, and again, I think just because he was molested doesn't mean his actions are not counted against him. I think it should be. And to me, it's strange because it's like, sorry, I'm getting too worked up. No one's perfect. No one is without sin. That's me. That's everybody. And so that's why we have to continue to fix ourselves, be better. But essentially, we I'm sorry, I'm getting too worked up. And it's not just him, it's just like, and that's why sometimes I think to myself, despite all the legality, and maybe they're targeting him, you know, I wonder if we're just hiding, if he's just kind of like a projection, if we're just projecting ourselves, like, he has these demons, and what if we have demons that we don't want to talk about, I don't know. I really don't know. But for me, it's just like the lack of repentance, the lack of not doing that. Like he's been found on countless attempts. This finding R. Kelly thing is not new. This isn't a Bill Cosby like, oh, and at the same time, I don't even know about that. Like I didn't focus too much on that one, but for the most part, it's just like Bill Cosby. Like, did he? I'm sorry. I'm not sure if Bill Cosby he was doing it at multiple attempts during his career, from what I understand. And so it's just, as far as I could tell, he just finally got caught. I'm sorry, I got industry. I gotta go hit the restroom. Sorry, I'll be right back.